Hello. So today we're going to be taking a look at Emergent drums. This is a new plugin by Audialab. It's their first plugin, and it's a AI model that generates drum noises for you. So, got drum noises. That's cool. It's neat. It's a cool plugin. There's some interesting dynamics going on with the plugin from a philosophical standpoint, both in the plugin like generating drums, like do you want to do that versus craft your own, and some interesting things going on with the company with Audiolab. I'm gonna start with the company first. I'm gonna try to get out of this way as quick as I can. So Audiolab, it's a new company, and they've done some things that I think are uh, interesting. Good interesting is that they have a Discord, and they're really responsive on there. They've taken feedback incredibly quickly. I have reported probably 5 or 6 bugs already, and 3 of them got fixed in under an hour, and they had new development built out. I've never seen something like that before. That is absolutely incredible. Hats off to them. That's awesome. On the other hand, the way they did the launch was odd, and I'm not a huge fan. So they did this whole launch partner thing where anybody who signed up and said, "Yeah, I'm going to make content ahead of time like this," would get like free copy, and anybody who bought a version with their link would get half the profit. And so then they had in the first week they were selling it for $100, and the launch partners would get $50 for every sale. That's that's interesting. That's cool. But then the problem was not a week later they do a Black Friday sale. It's $50. So anybody who bought it in that first week just got boned. And like that's not cool, guys. Don't do that a week after your launch. I mean, this isn't anything new. The VST and plugin world is already inundated with like weird sale problems where you can go get like a neural DSP plugin for like $150 normally or dang near nothing on Black Friday. I'm not saying this is exclusive to them. I'm saying the way they did it here kind of rubs me the wrong way. On top of that, they also have done this release in kind of weird ways, getting the community to promote their launch in a way that I don't think is incredibly ethical. They haven't necessarily been asking for promotional disclosure all the time. So, on that note, here's your promotional disclosure. I got Emergent drums for free. I haven't really used it at all because, frankly, I'm not a huge fan of the drum sounds it makes, but I got it for free. So, with all of that out of the way, let's talk about the drum sounds it makes. So, this, I'm just going to hit generate random. So, it's going to generate 16 new drum sounds for me right off. Generating some samples. And so, these are generated, this is another interesting point, online. Not offline, they're definitely online. It has to generate the samples by connecting to their server. And that's another thing for a new company, $100 for a plugin, that you have to generate your samples online. Like if their sample generation servers ever go offline, what are you supposed to do? Like you're just out the money. I mean, right now, yeah, it's unlimited generation. That's awesome, but there's being somebody that's willing to stable diffusion compared to like Dolly or the other image generators because I can run stable diffusion locally on my computer. That again rubs me a little bit the wrong way. On the flip side, it's also nice to not have to run it on your hardware. So like for stable diffusion, the image generator, if I'm running that on my hardware, I bought an RTX 3090, $1,000 graphics card for running that AI inference. I've already talked to them, and they say they're running the inference right now on a CPU, which implies it's lightweight enough they actually probably could let you run it on your own computer. They have said that this is something they're going to really look into, that it might become in the future, but the fact of the matter is it's not doing that right now. And for a new company, that is a tough sell. Okay, so all of the negatives out of the way. How does this thing actually sound? Is it usable? Is it fun? So let's start by just playing some sounds here. So I'm finger drumming right now. I'm not fantastic at that. It sounds fine. I actually have no complaints with that. Let's pick on one sample here. So here we have a kick. I can regenerate this kick and get a completely new kick sound. Okay. There's gain control, so I can turn it way the heck up. And I have a limiter on this so that we are clipping really hard. So in your DAW, you'd have to be aware of that. There's the limiters right over here. So I'll take that down. We won't clip so bad. We have attack control. So, punchiness, release. That's actually really nice. This, I believe, is distortion clipping. Yeah, okay, so this is just direct clipping. And so you can see, unlike the volume, when we start to get too high, this kind of folds back over. I'm going to take the volume down on this quite a bit, just so that we have something to not be destroying off the fact. So, not my favorite distortion. It's usable. It's serviceable. There's a filter, which I think they've adjusted the range on this since the last time I used it. Yeah, they did a tiny bit, I think, because last time I think it went up to the sample rate. Not sure. Regardless, it does filter things. I will try to test here in a moment if that filter is resonant. But, yeah. We have panning, which, sure. Double click to reset. Always nice to actually have that implemented. Sample pitch. Now, keep in mind, these are just samples, so it's adjusting the playback speed at the end of the day. So that's why really high pitch, shorter entire sound if I go really low. Yeah, really low. And I believe this doesn't have a low-pass filter on it outside of... Yeah, so this goes all the way down to 2 hertz. So I don't think it's DC coupled, but, like, I think it's getting below audio rates here, especially you can see on that FFT down here. Like, that is nice and slow. And, I mean, that's arguably useful, but it's nice that it can do it, I guess. So one thing I noticed just playing around with the samples, all of them seem to have this sort of aliasing effect, and I do want to briefly mention that. So, like, what I mean by that is I'm going to go ahead and grab a sample and hold module. Well, this module is more than just sample and hold, but you get the idea. I'm going to grab a scope, and I'm going to grab a sine wave oscillator. So if I hook up this basic oscillator directly to the scope, and we give it a time scale where it's visible. Okay, there's just a basic sine wave, right? If I take this frequency, play it around, we can do this. If I'm gonna now sample this at a lower rate. So I'm gonna grab another oscillator, and I'm gonna crank its frequency all the way up to basically 20,000 hertz. So this would still sound a little different, but it's not gonna be noticeable. See how that wave has, now YouTube compression is probably gonna eat it, but it has kind of a sharp edge traveling through it. As I turn this frequency down, those edges will come out more and more, right? So we get just to the point where this gets blocky and gross. Well, if we look at that on a frequency display, if I have this at relatively high frequencies, there's a little stuff down here. It's aliasing noise, but there's not a huge amount. But the more I adjust that frequency, you can see as these artifacts come through, right? I think, again, I can't confirm, but it sounds to me like we have more or less those same artifacts, but baked into the samples on almost all the samples. Not all, but almost all. And it creates a sound that is distinctly more digital. Again, not necessarily saying this is a bad thing, but it's something I've observed. Let me just play a few samples and we can see if we can hear it. Actually, even there... we can see a few spikes down here. I'm not saying that those are aliasing, but they definitely sound like it. And like a lot of these sound fine. I'm also hearing, that one. There's some of that kind of high-end ringing digitalness on the end. Let me actually turn the gain on that way up just so we can hear that. I don't know if you can hear that right at the end there, how gainy that gets. I just have this so I can mute when I talk. It's not exactly ideal. It's not bad. And it's worth considering that, all of these are generating in, like, completely AI models, so we're getting unique samples on the fly. It's not like somebody can sit here and hand tweak them to avoid something that would sound like aliasing, even if it's not. So it's nice. If I go back to that kick drum though, another big feature is being able to regenerate. So if I put this entirely on random and I hit generate, we're gonna get an entirely new sound out. That was not satisfying. There we go. So I like that kick. I can kind of keep a similar kick and just keep regenerating. And I can adjust how similar what I generate is to the last thing, and I can navigate back in time and sort of branch out until I can get the sound I want. So that works pretty well. Another thing, I have to give him props on the responsiveness of this and just what it can tolerate. So I'm going to go ahead and do something very stupid here. Instead of drumming on my drum pad here, I'm going to hook up an oscillator to... Well, actually, let me start with just a clock to point out that, yes, I'm playing it through MIDI the way you'd expect. Let me hook up... yeah, I'll just do it like this. A gate to the clock, and then I'll grab a offset just so we can switch between what we're actually playing. There we go. So I'm using VCVREC here for demonstrating the plugin. There's a few reasons for that. You'll start to see more as we go here. Okay, so first issue here, you can see because my triggers are so incredibly short here, we're not actually seeing the graphical interface update. And I've notified them of this. Clearly it hasn't been fixed yet. It's still a fairly early dev plugin, and that's the kind of thing that I notice at least. To make a point of what it should look like, I'll put a slew here on that gate just so it's on for longer. Yeah. Okay, so now, depending on the video frame rate, you should see that hi-hat actually flashing at us. Clearly, they are only updating the GUI and at the frame rate, so if you trigger between two frames and the trigger doesn't last longer than a frame, so about 1/60 of a second, it doesn't show up. That's kind of annoying. And that's a bug, and like I've reported this bug, it's probably going to get fixed, but for a $100 plugin, this is kind of stuff you hope that's already been worked out. Anyway, I'm going to crank that frequency way the heck up. So now you can see we are triggering this thing pretty darn fast, right? But not crazy yet. So let me grab an oscillator. It doesn't really matter what I use. I'll just pick a normal VCO here. So I'm going to take this down to 11 hertz to start out with, and this will let us actually crank this. So I'm not going to go too much higher than that because anything more than that isn't up to them to have working. I don't think it matters if it works. Point being, it does. So at least we know the plugin is nice and responsive. That's cool. But let's go back to hooking up a drum pad here, and let's see how this thing behaves if we God, words are hard. Actually start using it for real music. So I'm gonna hook up a clock again, and let's start actually just getting a little jam going. We're synchronized. I'm going to go ahead and give this by 4 o'clock. And let it run. Okay, so I may have messed up here for where I have the notes bound, which is why we're not getting anything out right now. Let me change this preset. This is not their fault. This is entirely a... there we go. Yeah, so there's a little bit of disagreement in the MIDI standard about what notes are. So you'll see this C2. That C2 here on this host doesn't match the C1 here. That's not their fault. There's just a disagreement for how to follow the MIDI standard here. But yes, it does at least function. We have beats coming through. That gain is not there. Okay, there we go. So we have a beat. If I throw some, let's put just a bit of reverb on this. Actually, I'm going to put a mixer down just so this isn't a pain as we go. trying to leave the plugin window up for you guys, so it's a little in the way. Okay, so let's add some reverb now. Yeah, it actually sounds pretty good. Like, I think when you start to actually get something going, it can work quite well. And because you just get so many drums, you can really start to just crank through having a lot of different noises, which is pretty nice. That's not what I wanted. There we go. But we can completely regenerate all the drums. So if I want to regenerate all the drums, I can just hit refresh or regenerate. And it'll ask me if I want to regenerate all of them. Can't see that window. And we're regenerated. So let me turn it back on and see what we got. So that's the same pattern, just we get massively different stuff out of it. I'll regenerate again. So, I mean, that sounds decent. Like, it's still highly usable. It's a little limited, but it's highly usable. There are mute and solo buttons. Or actually, there's no solo yet. There's mute. I've discussed, and they are, I think, thinking about adding a solo at the very least. These mute buttons aren't overly visible, and sometimes it's a little hard to tell if they're muted or not, which isn't great. There is a drag button here, which will let you check out the individual file, as well as a drag all the files. Because I'm using VC VRAC, there's not a huge reason for me to drag all of the samples at once. There's not many things that would support it. But I believe here, let's just find out live together, that I can just drag the samples out individually. So actually, let's go ahead and try this. I don't know if this works. It's not necessarily up to them to have this be supported, but, well, at least I think we got one sample working there. Yeah. Let me do a different sampler to see what we got. This is kind of less likely to work. Yeah, no. But, yeah, you know, it's functional. It does the job if I want to grab a... Is that going to work? Nope. Yeah, this isn't at all their problem either. This is VC VRAC plugins not necessarily being made to support dragging samples in this way. But if you have a DAW that, you know, that would be supported, almost guaranteed. Like, I've tried it in both Ableton and Renoise, and it worked just fine. So, I think it was Renoise. I don't know. It's been 2 weeks. Anyway, just being that yes, it is featured to work with a DAW and under the assumption that you're not necessarily going to want to work with only their relatively limited sample controls. In another sampler, you might have better filters, you might have some resonance control, you might have downsampling, you might have all the other things you'd want. So it's neat, it's cool. In VCV Rack here, we can still do quite a bit. So, oh yeah, I have everything muted. Let me unmute here. I'm going to use a kind of half-tempo drum set going on here, because with this many samples, it'd just be a pain. And let's see if we can get a bit of a track going. So I'm just going to use pretty simple. I'm going to use relatively simplified modules here to get a track kind of coming to shape, because I really don't want to focus on the VCV rack all that much. I just want to focus on how these drums sound. So let me just drop some stuff in. We'll get a sequencer. Let's use the easiest use quantizer I can find, which is probably JW's. We'll slap that in. We'll shove that on just a by 4 o'clock. Hook that boy up. And we'll need to gate this. I'm going to gate it on just the by 2 clock, which should give us some fairly interesting rhythms, I hope. Let me mute out the drums, take that synth down a little bit, and let's bring it back in. I'm going to randomize that sequencer. I'm going to randomize the synthesizer. I'm going to put some reverb on that. Let's put some delay on that, too. And let's do branches. Good enough. Let's bring the drums back in. I don't like that sound. There we go. Maybe. Maybe not. There. Okay, so one thing I just did right here is add a compressor onto the onto the lower end track on that bass synth track, based on all of the output of the Emergent drums, but that's not necessarily the way you'd always want to do it. So if I bump over to the host module, which is what I'm using to host a VST inside of VCV Rack, one thing that Emergent drums recently had added, which I haven't even tested yet, is the ability to, there we go, now I have 2 instances running. This is fun. Supposedly do completely individual outputs. I have no idea how to do it. Yep, there we go. Output routing, multi. So this only gives me up to 8 outputs. I'm not totally sure how they have them routed. Let's go ahead and just grab a whole boatload of scopes. Let's do the thing. Cool. They have a ton of scopes. I'm going to not use that color. Let's do just blue, red, green. Yellow is going to look like crap. Purple. Cool. So now, yeah, would you look at that? We have individual outputs. So this is definitely a big win. Again, I don't know how they're routed right now. I'm sure there's settings to get this to be a little happier. Oh, actually, it looks like they're outputting in stereo on those individual outputs. Probably because, they do have left-right panning. So, let's see here. Let me set the offset on these channels. And then, I'm not actually seeing that panning applying. That could be a bug. That's unfortunate. There is a other view mode here. Yeah, here we go. So there's also this. We can, expand the thing out. I don't know how useful that... I mean, it's not useless. I don't know how useful it is. It does have window resizing, like, super built in. I'm on a 4K monitor, so the fact it can stretch this big is pretty sweet. And then as soon as I drug it, it went back down. Great. It might be hitting the max size because, 4K problems. Overall, it's pretty neat. I don't know that I have too much more to say on it past that. You can get some neat sounds out of it. The company is both good and bad. The responding to feedback, the taking criticism very happily is absolutely incredible. I don't think I've seen any other developer be as open and responsive as these guys are. That's awesome. On the flip side, I also don't know that I've seen any other developer email out to people in a tone and via a system that sounds like you're talking to the developer one-on-one, and actually you are. I was able to respond and reply and talk to them, both in Discord and via email. And that's good and bad. In the music world, that sort of one-on-one relationship with the developer is really useful and valuable, but it comes at a cost of a mild lack of professionalism. And I'm not necessarily saying that's bad. You don't necessarily want your tools to be, these ultra professional, high-end, glossy things when you're making music. You want some love and flavor and handcraftedness. On the flip side, there's problems with that too. It means that, when they're trying to do these one-on-one relationships, it can convince people that are reviewing the product to say things that not say that they're sponsored. It can produce this image problem. It can get them in legal trouble. One thing I don't know about is this plugin is released as a VST2. I don't know how they did that. VST2 is well known in the audio world at this point for having issues with licensing to Steinberg. They're a new developer. Maybe they did that right. I don't know. If that is an issue, and that will become an issue later, spending money on a plugin that potentially has issues with, it needs server connection, that feels uncomfortable, And I pointed this out to him, and, it's a happy, thank you for pointing this out, laugh it off kind of thing, but I don't see that as a laugh it off kind of thing. If I'm going to be dropping, actually, let's go check. I believe that, they are at a fair amount of cash on the thing here, so let me look. It currently says it's still invite only, but I believe it's $100. It might be 150. That's a chunk of change, even if it's on sale for Black Friday, that's not cool. to have that situation. And I think that brings up the next big point of if you're going to be spending that much money on a drum synth, like there are other options. There's Drumputer by Sugar Bytes. That thing is old but good. It's a dang good plugin. Or Drum Computer. That was Drumputer. Let me bump this over here. 1 second. Oh wow, I'm failing. Oh Jesus Christ. There we go. So yeah, Drum Computer. I mean, this thing has been around forever. It has, some decent like 808 style kits, but it can really turn into pretty much anything you want. It has a really nice built-in sequencer. It sounds really good. It's more or less everything built in. And even then, you're kind of competing with hardware. I mean, yeah, you're not getting to the point of like a dig attack with that. That's like $700, but there are some drum machines that can be had for around that price, especially used. I got my Electron Model Cycles, which is that really cool FM drum synth for like $200 used. At the same time, they're also competing with things like the Proc drums, which exist both in hardware and in VCV rack. Let me pull these out. We have the bass drum, snare drum. Let's grab the bass drum, snare drum, hi-hat. Let me yeet some of this away. And I'll hook these up basically where I had that before. And let's grab these. I'm going to hook this up to a trigger. Cool. I'm going to unmute myself here. Okay, so these are, generic sounding drums, right? I'll turn them up a bit. But they are extremely flexible. They're not AI generated, but they definitely morph into a lot of different tones. And these, I can morph these live. I can have something else sequence their parameter. So if I wanted to, I can grab a random. Let's just throw this on X. We'll trigger it. Put it on both. I'll just shove it on like all the parameters just to make a point. Or here, just to make that a little more musical. Yeah, you can hear me bending those in real time, right? I can, phase, put that on the clock. I mean, having the AI novelty is cool. It's AI generated. That's awesome, and you can really, if you learn to bend that, you can get it into some interesting places. But I'd rather have something I can, morph and, navigate through the sounds, which is only really possible if you're synthesizing them instead of generating samples.